KREF app.
The Ref Sports Radio Network.
Live from the Buffalo Wild Wings studios, it's time to get locked into the best Sooner recruiting and football news with Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton.
You better lock it up. No, you lock it up. You lock it up. Lock it up.
Hit the guys up on the Riverwind Casino call-in line at 405-329-9000 or text the show on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line at 405-651-3439.
Do it! Just do it!
Now, with Locked In, here's Parker Thune and Grayson Singleton.
I was reminded this morning, Grayson, I come to this realization every couple of months, maybe every 3 months, a handful of times every year. I'm reminded that NASCAR exists. And
you and me both.
And I got to be honest. Look, I'm not one of those people that loses sleep at night over the fact that the polar ice caps are melting and the doomsday clock is ticking down to midnight and the earth is going to be uninhabitably hot within the span of the next decade or two. But there's not a more environmentally insensitive sport than NASCAR, is there?
No.
Like, think about that. You have, what is it, 40 cars in a NASCAR field?
Give or take.
40 cars every single Sunday, driving 500 miles at an average of, like 170 miles an hour?
That might be the low end.
They're all going through, one of the great mysteries to me is what happens to all the tires we use as a society.
That's an interesting thought.
Because, you've seen these big, fields of old tires, right?
Yeah.
And I know that there are some tires that get recycled and turned into, the infill that they use for turf fields and stuff like that. But I would think we're going through a lot more tires than we know what to do with as a society, as a planet. But these race cars are going through multiple sets of tires in the span of, how long does a NASCAR race take? 3 hours?
3-4 hours.
Not to mention the fact that they get 3 miles to the gallon because of how fast they're going and how just bulky those cars are.
Uh-huh.
There's not a more wasteful sport, and I'm hesitant to even call it a sport. There's not a more wasteful practice on the earth
No, it's a
than
sport.
professional auto racing.
I would be inclined to agree with you. I would still say it's a sport, though.
Really?
Yes.
What's athletic about it?
It takes some feat of bodily strength to be in a capsule going in a complete circle for 3 hours at a time. I think that takes some mental strength, and I think that takes some sort of bodily strength to be doing that.
So are astronauts athletes?
See,
the slope gets slippery, doesn't
Here's
it?
the difference, though. Astronauts are not always in a capsule, though. They go out into 0G sometimes. I don't know. No,
Are fighter pilots athletes?
Nah, I feel like
So you draw the line somewhere.
No, okay. So here's the thing, though. I think fighter pilots, that's the military. So, and that's a whole nother thing. Being a fighter pilot would be cool as hell. And you can tell my favorite movie growing up was Star Wars.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Which one?
Oh, Revenge of the Sith is the best one.
My wife's favorite movie is Top Gun.
Hell of a movie, too.
Because she's in the Air Force. I think that's
Oh, yeah, that's right.
probably part of the reason why. Hattie's in here cracking up. That's how I know our show's going well so far. Hattie's my gauge for how well we're doing.
You know what else is a gauge
Hattie
for
is
how
amused.
well? You want to know how else we can gauge our show is doing pretty good?
The Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line?
Is ablaze.
Oh, Big Chris says, I do thoroughly enjoy auto racing, but I totally agree with you about the pollution and whatnot that comes from auto racing. Gunny of Stutzman Army says, at least 40 tires per team. The temperature inside those cars gets crazy. I have no doubt that it does. Another listener says, pretty sure our used tires get shipped to India. They burn them properly, and voila, they're just gone. How do you burn a tire?
I mean, also, you talk about pollution.
Yeah, no joke, man. Tire smoke, that's got to be some of the most toxic stuff
I
imaginable.
know. I was going to say, I
would
don't
not want to
in.
breathe tire smoke. Please and thank you.
Dustin from Lawton. I work at Goodyear in Lawton. Y'all guess how many we make in a 24-hour span?
Ooh, okay.
Ooh, this is interesting.
I have absolutely no knowledge of that process whatsoever, Dustin, so this is a complete shot in the dark. I'm going to say 160 tires per 24 hours.
I was going to go 275 to 300.
Watch, we're going to be way off. The number's going to be in the thousands.
We probably are.
I have absolutely no idea, Dustin. Please let us know the answer. 405-651-3439. Jay in Tulsa says, favorite movie is Top Gun. Parker, I know a few good divorce lawyers. Won't need one. We're doing all right. I like Top Gun. You know, it's a solid movie. Not my favorite.
I think this is in the same realm. Is he basically insinuating that your wife is a big Tom Cruise fan? Is that?
I don't know what the insinuation there is.
I'm guessing that's the insinuation.
We were so off. Dustin from Lawton said they make 50,000 tires.
The hell?
In 24 hours. 50,000 tires. So if we're assuming you work 20 days a month, and you all work 20 days a month at the factory, Dustin, that factory in Lawton alone is producing 1 million tires on a monthly basis. And here we are talking about sports. I was having this conversation. I was out with Dari Noka on Saturday night in Oklahoma City, and we were having this conversation because I mentioned my wife is in the Air Force, and he said, man, you ever feel like what you do is so insignificant in the grand scheme compared to what she does? I'm like, yep. Have that thought on a regular basis.
Do you really?
But people care about what we do.
See, my girlfriend's a nurse, and that kind of is.
Oh,
along
she
those
got the
same lines.
girlfriend label.
Oh, yes.
Okay. Wow. We're getting somewhere.
we are there now.
We're getting somewhere. How recent is that?
Within the last week.
Oh, okay. Very fresh. What was it? This was like 6 months in the making, wasn't it?
We've been talking since right after New Year's. So,
wow.
yeah.
Look at that, Hattie. Look at our boy here. Making moves in the romance department.
Come on now.
Well done. Well done. 405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. We're going to stop talking about NASCAR and tires now, and we will start talking about OU football and recruiting. How does that sound? I mean, if you want to keep sending us texts about tires, by all means do so. We've gotten a ridiculous amount of texts about tires somehow. But, oh, here we go. Jay in Tulsa says, guys, the Top Gun insinuation was that it's an incredibly bad movie complete with a horrifically stupid sequel.
What?
I'll save us all some conflict here, Jay, and I won't tell my wife that you said that. She'll never know anyway because she doesn't listen to this show.
I actually enjoyed the Top Gun movie.
I did too. Like, it wasn't like my favorite movie of all time.
I've never seen the first one. I've only seen the sequel. Recruiting. We're gonna get there. We're 8 minutes in. First, well, I need to stay on the topic of all things automotive for a second and remind you that the show is brought to you by Dorsey Jones GMC out in El Reno. Flawless segue. Well
Dorsey Jones GMC out in El Reno, folks. Great service advisors out there. Real low-pressure sales environment, family-owned and operated. A lot of their employees have been with the company for almost 30 years. Half-price oil changes on Saturdays as well. That's a heck of a deal. So get out there to El Reno and check out Dorsey Jones GMC. We appreciate their partnership with us here on Locked In the Ref, the home of Sooner fans. All right, Grayson, let's get oriented here. I am orienting all of my attention to the official visit weekend that is on tap for Oklahoma. Now, there have been a few subtractions to this official visit list. We're tracking all of it at OUinsider.com. If you're not subscribed over there, would highly, highly recommend it because that is where you get all of the juice on all things Oklahoma football and recruiting. You think you get a lot of information on this show, you get even more over at OUinsider.com. But couple guys that we have yet to mention this week. Grayson. One of these guys took a big, big jump in the recent Rivals rankings update, all the way from 3-star status to number 72 overall in the nation. And that is cornerback Danny Odom out of the state of Florida. Not to be confused with current Oklahoma wide receiver commit Daniel Odom from the state of Florida. Danny Odom spells his name a little differently, so there's your distinguishing factor. It's O-D-E-M. Danny Odom from the state of Florida. He's already been to Oklahoma unofficially. I believe he visited in April, if I'm not mistaken. Took an unofficial campus visit in April, so he's been up here once. Oklahoma right now primarily battling Clemson, Ohio State, and Nebraska for Danny Odom. And this is a position we've talked about very little, Grayson, mostly because there's not an immediate need for Oklahoma at cornerback, as we have discussed. Feel great about the youth and the depth at that position on the roster right now. And so realistically, you don't have to sign a cornerback. You're probably going to take one, maybe two if it's the right two, and you find the right two that want to jump on board and want to be Sooners. But there's absolutely no way that Oklahoma is taking any more than two cornerbacks, and I think that's a stretch. I think you're looking at a one-man class, and Oklahoma would love for their one-man class to be Danny Odom. They have another cornerback scheduled for an official visit this weekend, 3-star Derek Johnson out of the state of California, but it seems that he's trending fast towards a commitment to the University of Washington. And so Danny Odom, with Ryan Gilbert also off the board to SMU, has kind of become Oklahoma's most viable candidate to wind up in the class at cornerback. So what do we think here?
More viable than Braden Presley.
Well, okay, so the reason I don't necessarily incorporate Braden Presley into that conversation is because OU does not necessarily know or have designs on what he is going to be. He may be a cornerback. He may be a safety.
Okay.
He may play both when he gets to campus. But in sum, Oklahoma is recruiting Braden Presley as a defensive back, more generically.
Okay, so in limiting this to an actual corner with Danny Odom, it's interesting to me that Ohio State is in this because when Odom released his top 8 on May 14th, Ohio State was not in this top 8. Now, Nebraska was, Clemson was, but there's no sighting of Ohio State here. So to me, that's kind of something to watch when a team isn't in your top 8 and then all of a sudden they're right there in the thick of things as things hit the home stretch.
Yes, they got involved late. Obviously, they're defending national champions.
Right.
There's going to be some juice there.
Right, and obviously the money factor in this can swing that in that direction either. To me, Danny Odom is a really interesting fit because we talked about Jim Naggie in terms of how he likes his bigger wide receivers. Danny Odom's got some size at corner too, and so when I look at it from that perspective, it kind of seems like a different position, but the same fundamental fit. He's 6'1" right now. He will probably, it's not unreasonable to say that he plays college football closer to 6'3". Once they get some weight on him, he's 160 right now, so gonna need to bulk up. But it's not out of the realm of possibility that you're looking at a 6'2", 190-pound corner, which is solid for a SEC defensive back. So I like the fit if they're able to outbox, Florida and Clemson and Ohio State. He took an OV to Georgia, I think, or some visit to Georgia as well. So if they're able to beat those guys out for him, that says a lot about the direction your program's going on the recruiting trail.
It's always interesting to me when I see Oklahoma and Clemson pitted against one another because I'll use another former target at this point for Oklahoma in the 2026 class to illustrate this point. Oklahoma was very much in the mix for quite a while for Carter Scruggs, the 4-star offensive lineman out of the state of Virginia. At this point, yes, they're still nominally in the mix, but I expect his recruitment to come down to Clemson, Penn State, and Michigan. And in conversing with Carter Scruggs over the course of the several weeks that constituted the spring evaluation period, one of the things I picked up on was the fact that culturally, he kind of just regarded Oklahoma as a poor man's Clemson, an offshoot of Clemson. Because if you think about it, right, everything that Brent Venables has built at Oklahoma is born out of the Clemson model.
Right.
And so that's always an area in which I wonder, and we've seen Oklahoma lose head-to-head battles to Clemson over the years. We've seen them win head-to-head battles, but they've certainly lost more than they have won. Sammy Brown comes to mind. Bryant Wesco comes to mind. And so I always wonder how Oklahoma, for targets like that, guys that are in on both Oklahoma and Clemson and see a potential fit at both Oklahoma and Clemson, how are the Sooners going to really distinguish themselves culturally from Clemson when it comes time to make your official presentation on the OV weekend? That's always a question to me when I see those two schools pitted against one another is how does Oklahoma, how will Oklahoma make themselves distinct from Clemson?
It's an interesting conversation because is there any specific way that you can point to that Brent Venables has put his unique spin on what Dabo Swinney built? And that's a question I don't know the answer to.
Yeah, and I'm not even sure I do as well.
Exactly. Yeah. And to a recruit, that can sort of seem, I can tell you how this can look for some people. It can kind of look halfway disingenuous with somebody who you do not know. Now, we're closer to Brent Venables. We cover it. We know he is a very genuine person. But to somebody who goes to Clemson and then goes to Oklahoma and knows the history with Brent Venables, it's like, wait a minute. Did this dude just copy every single thing and not put his own unique sort of flavor into it, which can negatively affect you? So that does make a lot of sense, and it's a very interesting thing if you continue to get more Clemson-Oklahoma battles, particularly Carter Scruggs trending toward Clemson, Danny Odom. If he goes to Clemson over Oklahoma, that might be something might be a more pertinent conversation that we have as we continue to go on.
I knew we were going to get at least one text like this. Recruiting Boomer says, a poor man's Clemson, LMAO, 7 natties and holder of the 47-game win streak. That kid ain't crap. First off, my words, not his, and I didn't say a poor man's Clemson as a dig at Oklahoma. I think that's just legitimately the perception that you probably have to a certain extent if you're a recruit that gets the chance to go on visits to both of these places and evaluate them, because keep in mind, you, Recruiting Boomer, are a diehard Oklahoma fan. You know about the 7 natties. You know about the 47-game win streak. You have all of those things committed to memory. When you're a recruit that didn't necessarily grow up an Oklahoma fan and you're trying to evaluate all of these schools at face value and kind of sum it all up on paper, what you're going to see is what Clemson built, what Dabo has built at Clemson dates back to 2008. This OG model that he's been rolling with for the better part of 2 decades delivered 2 national titles to Clemson. What Oklahoma has been building culture-wise dates back only to 2021, and again, there are a ton of similarities to Clemson because a lot of the structure at Oklahoma was born out of that Clemson model. Again, there's nothing wrong with that. But when you get pitted against the quote-unquote OG in that department, you're going to have to find ways to make your pitch distinct.
Exactly. And also keep this in mind, too. Danny Odom was born in 2008 or 2007 at the earliest.
Man, we're old.
The whole, I mean, for one, yes, but the whole 47-game win streak and the 7 natties is obsolete to somebody like him. Recruiting Boomer, I have no idea how old you are. I'm going to give a guess that you're at least 25 years older than Danny Odom, at the minimum. All that it's pretty null and void. Given that's a whole different world when all of that happens. So and that's what I'm talking about. Tradition is a thing, but it can mean less and less when these kids are 17 years old and you haven't won a natty in the 2000s.
And let me dive a little bit deeper for a second. The reason I kind of started to get that impression in talking to Carter Scruggs was that everything that he said he liked and valued about Oklahoma, which was completely sincere, mind you, but it was also something that was very much present and part and parcel of the Clemson identity. And so knowing that Clemson was right there in the mix, you look at the geography component. Clemson, South Carolina is much closer to Virginia than the state of Oklahoma is. So that's one thing. And also, again, you have to look at what these schools have done in these kids' lifetimes.
Exactly.
Clemson has 2 national titles in the last decade.
Yep.
Oklahoma, the drought's virgin on a quarter century, folks. That's just reality. I'm not telling you to feel one way or another about it, but that is the reality of the situation. It has been 25 years since Oklahoma has won a national championship. And so
I wasn't even born.
You have to do your best to put yourself in the mind of a 17-year-old kid. You haven't watched Oklahoma win a national title if you're 17 years old, but you've watched Clemson win 2 of them under this very same head coach and under this very same model. 405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Again, 405-651-3439. Is Jim Naggie a fraud? I'm noticing a disturbing trend on the message boards and on social media in this regard. I want to talk about Jim Naggie and everything that he is doing as general manager at the University of Oklahoma, some of the popular public perceptions right now, what is real and what isn't on the other side. So keep it here on The Ref, the home of Sooner fans. You're listening to Locked In.
Little things now can make the big things possible. Small choices like eating healthy, taking a daily folic acid vitamin, reducing stress, and maintaining regular doctor visits during pregnancy can have a big impact on your baby's health. It's more than just one moment. You're preparing for a lifetime. Visit preparingforalifetime.com to find more tips to keep your baby safe and healthy.
This is Mark Van Hoos, owner of Van Hoos Fence. Van Hoos Fence has years of experience and proven superior performance, kind of like a certain head ball coach.
We know Van Hoos Fence offers the best value and service for your residential, commercial, or sports fencing needs. Whether it's a new install or repair work, let Mark and his team at Van Hoos Fence be your trusted resource.
Call us today at 405-735-1167.
Save yourself from Googling it up. Go to vhfence.com. They will work with you in a great way.
The Athletes Unlimited Softball League is coming to Norman June 20th through the 23rd at Loves Field. Watch these legendary AUSL pro softball players on the Volts and Talons compete, including Sis Bates, Montana Fouts, and Oklahoma's own Tiare Jennings and Sydney Romero. To learn more about the Bandits, Talons, Blaze, and Volts, go to theausl.com and get your tickets today. AUSL, this is legendary.
At Confidence Ford of Norman, we believe in living up to our name. Our commitment to confidence is in everything we do. Whether you're searching for the perfect vehicle from our extensive selection of new Ford models or pre-owned cars, our dedicated team will help you every step of the way. Because with us, you're family. We're conveniently located at 825 North Interstate Drive. Confidence Ford of Norman, a Cavender Auto family dealership where confidence is Cavender.
Hi, everybody. Toby Rowland here for one of my favorite places to golf, the Trails Golf Club in Norman. The Trails offers great golf activities for the entire family. Men's and Ladies Golf Association events, summer junior golf for the kids, plus club fittings throughout the year. The Trails also has great family social events, monthly special dinners, plus holiday brunches and catering. When you're looking for the perfect place to golf, check out the Trails Golf Club in Norman. Contact Zane Alexander today at 405-364-3790 or visit trailsgolf.com.
Your child's oral health milestones matter. By age 1, see a pediatric dentist to establish good oral health habits. At 7, see an orthodontist to check your child's bite, teeth, and jaws. Around 15, visit an oral and maxillofacial surgeon to have your child's wisdom teeth examined. Remember, milestones met, healthy teeth set. Visit milestonesmet.org.
Your child is sick. With those 4 words, the innocence and joy of childhood disappears. But Starlight has taught us 4 other words that make all the difference. The power of play. Happy kids heal faster. That's why Starlight Children's Foundation delivers happiness through gaming, toy deliveries, and more to hospitals across the country. Learn more at starlight.org.
When I grow up, I want to be a teacher. Because when I'm a teacher, I can help kids to learn and chase their dreams.
PI, a defect of the immune system, affects millions of children. Early and accurate diagnosis and treatment give children like Sam a chance to achieve their dreams.
It takes a lot of caring teachers to make school fun. It took a lot of caring people to keep my dream alive. And now, because of them, I can be head of the class.
For more information, visit the Jeffrey Modell Foundation at info4pi.org.
Oh, man. Always got to read a Doug and Norman text whenever we get one here on Locked In. Parker Thune, Grayson, Singleton with you. Reading your texts on the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line throughout the show at 405-651-3439. Doug and Norman, a longtime denizen of the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. And he said, as an Air Force veteran, we all didn't fly Top Gun fighter jets. I took the opposite route and was a crew chief on the slowest type of aircraft in the world, a helicopter. Flying in Vietnam was a real treat, but as a 20-year-old in the late 60s, it was what we did. Thank you for your service, Doug.
I did not know Doug was a veteran.
Oh, yes.
Did
yes,
not know this.
Doug has led quite a life.
Sounds like it.
Yeah, you may be fortunate enough to hear some of his stories in person one day. There was a second part to this text. He said, as far as NASCAR goes, from 2001 through 2013, I worked part-time at Chicagoland Speedway. They used off-duty firefighters on the safety crew. I loved going out on the track during a wreck and helping pick up the pieces. A typical race weekend, they used thousands of tires. But they turned the tires back into the manufacturer, either Goodyear or Firestone, for recycling. Good show today. Thank you, Doug. Thanks for your listenership. Thanks for your service. Thanks for being a regular with us here on Locked In.
One-star Puerto Rican Sooner said, when I guess I revealed that I have a girlfriend now, he said, no more poke Willie slinging Willie.
Reformed Homer wanted to know, have you held her hand yet? It's a valid question.
Yes.
Okay. Good.
Yes.
We have our answer. There you go. Okay, to the Jim Naggie conversation, because I wanted to borrow a popular topic of discourse right now over on the message board at ouinsider.com. OU safety target Caden Hall committed to Florida yesterday.
Mm-hmm.
That was one we were watching going into the weekend. It was going to be his first official visit, but there was kind of a sense that with them being the in-state program, the one closest to home, they might be able to convince him to shut it down after just one OV, and that is what happened. Caden Hall will no longer take his official to Oklahoma June 20th through the 22nd. He is a Gator. And for whatever reason, as soon as Caden Hall committed to Florida, the Chicken Littles began to scurry about and point the wing, I suppose, at Jim Naggie. I will read just one of the comments that have accumulated on the message board at ouinsider.com. The reason, this is from Sooner Jim 09, by the way. Sooner Jim 09 said, the reason people are upset with Naggie is because his recruiting decisions have been questionable at best. Turning away from in-state studs like Mason James and Caden Jones, while simultaneously offering scholarships to players the caliber of Matthew Nelson and Ben Wenzel is head-scratching, to say the least. Caden Hall committing to Florida isn't necessarily Naggie's fault, but he is the head guy who calls the shots on player personnel and determines how money is spent, so it is not crazy to be upset with how Naggie has handled this cycle so far. Knee-jerk reaction, Mr. Singleton.
Okay, so this goes back to something we talked about a couple weeks ago, that if things start to go south on the recruiting trail, turning away from a guy like a Mason James who is right down the street is going to be bad for public perception. I think that was Exhibit A of that right there. Now, that said, no, it is not Jim Naggie's fault that Caden Hall is now a Gator. But I think this is the question that I think a fan would ask, and I think it is a valid one for a fan to ask. Is Jim Naggie and his addition niching the Sooners down? Are they going for people at certain positions that are so within a certain archetype that it's that it's weeding out people that otherwise you maybe should have gotten and can be productive for you. I do think that is a valid question for a fan to ask. That's my first thought. Now, in terms of the caliber of Ben Wenzel's a hell of a football player.
Yeah, he is. There will be no Ben Wenzel slander. I know he's committed to Wisconsin. That boy can play.
He is a hell of a football player and a hell of a football mind. The Matthew Nelson thing, I get your frustration. I have some questions about Matthew Nelson too. Believe me. Matthew Nelson is not a guy that excites me. I think I've probably at least insinuated that at the very least on this show. But to say he's doing a bad job necessarily, number one, I think is way too early to tell. And number two, at least for the short term, this team looks more explosive for 2025. So any kind of negative judgment, I think, is premature. In terms of the recruiting stuff, I can get the frustration. It's a really complicated answer to say, I get how everybody feels. Nobody's really out of bounds here, but let's pump the brakes just a little bit.
I'm going to read you a list of names. A list of names, Mr. Singleton, and there's going to be two common denominators amongst all of the names on this list.
Okay.
I'm going to see if you can figure them out. Ready?
Yeah.
Kelvin Gilliam, Savion Byrd, Damon Harmon, Jordan Mukes, Cody Jackson, Nathan Rollins-Kabonge, Cavante Henry, Jaden Rowe, Jason Llewellyn, Josiah Wagner, buffering, please hold. Okay, there we go. Derek LeBlanc, Dalen Smothers, Jaquez Petaway, Caleb Hicks, Keon Brown. We can stop it there. I could go on. What are the two things all of those individuals have in common?
They both transferred out of Oklahoma, or they've all.
They all are no longer at the University of Oklahoma, correct?
And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, did they all exit after the addition of Jim Naggie?
No.
Okay.
Some of them were gone long before Jim Naggie.
Oh, yeah, Dalen Smothers.
The other common denominator is that all of those guys were blue chippers.
Ooh.
All of those guys were regarded by the recruiting industry as four-star players.
Yeah.
So that underscores the point here that ranking recruits and evaluating talent at the high school level is a very inexact science. When we look at Oklahoma's 2023 class in particular on paper, and this is an example that I bring up a lot in conversations that are of this ilk, we all had convinced ourselves that Oklahoma's 2023 class was going to be the type of class that brought a national championship back to Norman because it looked fantastic on paper. I believe it was the number 6 class in the nation, absolutely loaded all across the board with blue chip talent. A lot of those blue chippers didn't amount to much of anything, Grayson.
Nope.
And a lot of them have since departed the program. And so, yes, while rankings do matter, and while 5 stars in particular are going to ascend to stardom at a disproportionate rate and represent a disproportionate amount of the first-round NFL draft picks one day, as well they should. The reason why you hire Jim Naggie is to improve the process of evaluation and to cultivate a higher hit rate. Because think about this. I'm sure everyone right now, right this second, would love it if Jim Naggie showed up and started recruiting all of the top guys in the country. Started pushing for all of the 5-star, high 4-star, top 100 dudes, and stacked Oklahoma's official visit list with guys from that category. 2 issues with that. First off, you're not going to have the budgetary space, nobody is, to sign more than 3 or 4 of those guys in a given class. And also, do you really need Jim Naggie or anybody else for that matter. Do you need to pay Jim Naggie whatever his salary is, $600,000, $700,000? Do you really need to pay him that much money every single year to walk into the building and say, let's recruit all the 5 stars?
No.
Everybody that the industry thinks is a 5-star, let's push for those guys. If you think it's that simple, first off, you're fooling yourself, because that's what Texas A&M did in 2022, and look where it got them. But also, you don't need Jim Naggie to do that. You don't need somebody that's spent 20-plus years at the NFL level to join your staff as the general manager if all you're doing is stargazing. What's going to happen to a large percentage of the players that make up the 5-star contingent in this 2026 cycle? A lot of them will never amount to anything at the collegiate level. I can rattle off a list of 5 stars from years gone by that you forgot existed. Guys like Antonio Alfano and Chris Marshall and Reuben Owens. Some of you remember Reuben Owens. Some of y'all thought Reuben Owens was going to be the next big thing, potentially at Oklahoma. I thought Reuben Owens was going to be the next big thing. Not everybody pans out. Sometimes it's easy to see coming. Sometimes it's very difficult to see coming with 5-star talent. But the reason you bring in Jim Naggie is because you are well aware of and willing to acknowledge the fact that recruiting all of the top guys that the recruiting services favor is a bad business model. At that point, you are merely Jimbo Fisher in Texas A&M.
And you know, I guess I'm speaking as the average fan here with this, is that Jim Naggie is doing something that is so blatantly new. And you've covered recruiting longer than I have. How many times in the past has Oklahoma turned away from a 4-star guy right down the street that we think is going to make a pretty sizable college football impact? It looks a little bit strange.
Suspect, to say the least.
It's very suspect. Agreed. That combined with the dudes that you think Oklahoma should get going elsewhere, I can get the frustration. But the reality of the situation is we don't know. When it comes to Jim Naggie, when it comes to his first ever recruiting class, which is the 2026 class, we don't know. We probably won't know for 2 or 3 years what this is all going to amount to. Because you got to look at what happened to the players that Oklahoma lost on. What if Ben Wenzel doesn't amount to much at Wisconsin? Or he could be the next great middle linebacker that gets drafted in the top of the second round of the draft. We don't know.
Remember when OU fans all over the country, and the world for that matter, were so bummed out that the Sooners missed out to LT Overton to Texas A&M? Texas A&M won that battle for LT Overton. What has LT Overton done at the collegiate level?
I forgot he exists.
3 years later, as though, man, we really missed the boat on that one. Heck, the same is true of DJ Hicks.
Yeah.
DJ Hicks hasn't had the impact at Texas A&M that I think many imagine, including myself, that he would have had through 2 seasons as an Aggie. It's a highly inexact science. And that is why you turn to somebody with 20-plus years of NFL scouting experience because, and it's time for the weekly Moneyball reference here. You remember the scene in the movie between Billy Beane and his...
Go ahead, get over with, Parker.
And his head scout, Grady Fuson? And Grady's reaming him there in the training room about how this is not how you build a team. You're throwing all the conventional logic out the window. You need baseball people to build a baseball team. This is not how you do it, and you're never going to get another job after you get fired because we have a catastrophic season. Billy hears him out throughout this whole rant, and what does he throw his hands up at the end and say? Adapt or die.
Adapt or die. I mean,
Oklahoma's adapting.
They are adapting.
That's what Jim Naggie's addition is. It's an acknowledgement that we need to evolve as a football program. We have to go beyond conventional logic. We have to change the way that we're doing things in order to win football games and build a sustainably sourced talent pipeline here in the NIL era. As I have said many times, I myself am willing to give Naggie the benefit of the doubt for at least the remainder of this cycle, see what he can come up with, see how many of these under-the-radar evals and takes, like a Matthew Nelson, turn out to be good college football players 2, 3, 4 years down the road. And at that point, we'll be able to render judgment on whether this whole Jim Naggie era at Oklahoma was the start of something new, the start of something great, or an absolute fiasco. Heck, it may be an absolute fiasco. Only time will tell.
And there's a lot of different roads this could go in terms of turning into a fiasco. Because if they don't win games this year, the staff is gone. And those under the radar guys, they may transfer out and we may never see what kind of players they could have become at Oklahoma. That's a possibility.
It is. And look, if you don't win and your staff is looking for new occupations come November, you're going to lose a lot of guys at the end of the recruiting cycle that flip elsewhere.
Absolutely.
Because they've built the relationships with the coaching staff. So it is paramount that Oklahoma wins football games in 2025. And from that standpoint, I think Jim Naggie's, one of his first orders of business was such a wise one in going to grab Jaden Ott.
Yes.
Because you go get Jaden Ott, you pay him what Oklahoma paid him, you're serious about winning now. 405-651-3439 is the Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. One more segment of Locked In on the way. You're listening to The Ref, the home of Sooner fans. Stay right here.
Hey, this is Michael Vasucci. You listen to The Ref, the home of Sooner fans.
Beats and Bites Festival is back again at Riverwind Casino, where good grooves and great food are on tap all summer long. Kicking off on June 14th with Josh Turner.
Would you go with me?
And Edwin McCain. Along with crave-worthy eats from local food trucks, there's something for everyone. Get your tickets online or at the box office for just $10. Only at Riverwind Casino.
Why don't we just dance?
Hey, Mike Steely here for my good friends at Cavens Group. Spring temperatures are here and the threat of severe storms loom. Are you ready? Cavens can help you with water intrusion and inspections for mold. Also spring cleanup and yard cleanup with their 12-foot dumpsters. Don't wait for the water to expose your problems. Get ahead of it today with Cavens Group Spring Checkup. Call them today at 405-573-3048 or visit cavensgroup.com.
Fowler Automotive is proud to be a part of your community, where our passion and values lie far beyond the showroom. We believe that families, sports, art, and culture are at the heart of every thriving community, and it's important to us that we help build the communities that our dealerships call home. Stop by any of our 6 Oklahoma dealerships to see the Fowler standard hard at work. We pride ourselves on being friendly, helpful, honest, and fair. This is what drives us every day. Fowler Automotive, a proud partner of OU Athletics.
Feeling stuck in your current home? Now is the best time to make a move. Home Creations is making home ownership more affordable with low interest rate opportunities and special financing. Don't wait. Live like a champion today. Call Holly at 405-364-9999 to find your dream home.
364-9999 means Home Creations.
Home is where memories are made, where life happens and love grows. And at Armstrong Bank, we can get you there. Whether you're buying a home, refinancing, renovating, or taking advantage of your home equity, we're here to help you make your next memories. Home is wherever you're headed. For more information, visit an Armstrong Bank location near you. Armstrong Bank. Strength runs in our family. Member FDIC Equal Housing Lender.
To some, the sound of a baby babbling doesn't mean much, but that's not true. They're testing out vowels and consonants and trying different sounds. And by 12 months, their babbling is beginning to take on meaning, especially if there's no babbling at all. Little to no babbling by 12 months or later is just one of the possible signs of autism in children. Learn more at autismspeaks.org.
Many of our U.S. veterans and service members face challenges: mental health struggles, housing obstacles, food insecurity, and social isolation, to name just a few. I'm Bob Woodruff. My family and I started the Bob Woodruff Foundation in 2006 after I sustained a life-threatening injury while reporting from Iraq. Our service members had my back that day, and we need to have theirs now more than ever. At our foundation, we invest in solutions, so learn more about our work at bobwoodrufffoundation.org/success.
Hi, I'm Martha Stewart. Every year, more than 4 million pets enter shelters here in the United States. My friends at American Humane have been helping animals since 1877. The goal is to ensure that pets have a safe shelter, especially during natural disasters. Adopting a shelter pet allows shelters to help more animals awaiting care. Please consider adopting today and take some time to learn more about American Humane's other work at americanhumane.org.
First round of official visits coming up for Oklahoma this weekend, and man, Grayson, I'm kind of bummed. Doesn't sound like Celeste Moa is going to make it in for an OV to Oklahoma.
So we don't get the son of the bare knuckle fighting champion of the world?
Tragically, no. Seems like he's going to be a Michigan Wolverine or a Tennessee Volunteer. So
Tennessee?
Yeah, honestly, you kind of hope he goes to Michigan, right? Because then you don't have to play. Well, I guess you will have to play him next fall, but he'll be a true freshman, so who knows if he'll be on the field yet. I think he's sure good enough to carve out a role at Michigan right away. Love Celeste Moa, man. One of my absolute favorite prospects.
He's a dog.
In the whole 26 class, but
he's a dog.
Doesn't look like Oklahoma's going to be the landing spot. So good opportunity for Oklahoma to close this weekend, though, with some of their top targets across the board in the 2026 cycle. Noah Best is a guy that has long been an Oklahoma lean. There's certainly margin for things to take a left turn there. Always got to worry about SMU these days whenever you see SMU on tap for an OV from Noah Best, but things feel pretty secure there as far as OU is concerned. Dallas Dickerson's going to make it to campus for the very first time. Wide receiver out of the state of Georgia. That's one man that, even though it is his first visit, I have him tentatively on commit watch going into the weekend just because I think he fits really nice with everything that Oklahoma is and everything that they're trying to do offensively. So wouldn't be shocked if something shook there. One guy, this may be the dude that I would say is most likely to commit over the weekend outside of Matthew Nelson. I think everybody has conceded that Matthew Nelson's probably going to wind up in Oklahoma's class, and it may not be long before that comes to fruition. But Tyler Ruxer, the tight end out of Indiana, man, it feels and sounds as though OU has established pretty solid position there with one of the fastest risers this spring across the recruiting industry.
I think that would be the most pleasant surprise of the entirety of this cycle. If Oklahoma, with as topsy-turvy as the Joe John Finley experience has been, is able to reel in Ryder Mix, who's been committed for the longest time, is not going anywhere, and Tyler Ruxer. I think that would be a job well done. And I hope the fan base that makes itself known on the text line here would give Joe John Finley his flowers after that. Because the tight end room did not look great for a myriad of reasons last year. He didn't look great calling plays, but if you're able to reel in a couple of good tight ends, that should go toward making amends. So I would give Joe John his flowers if that is able to come to fruition with Tyler Ruxer.
Knippelmeyer Chevrolet text line. Recruiting Boomer asks, Derek Moore still at Michigan? That's a good question. I should loop around on that. You know, it feels like we've talked a little bit more than usual about that OU-Michigan game over the last week or so. I guess because we're getting to the point where we're starting to look ahead to football season. Softball and baseball are wrapped up, and now it's full speed ahead towards football. But I will say, Oklahoma, let me tell you this much. Inside that building at the Switzer Center, they are taking that Week 2 contest versus Michigan very seriously.
Why would they not?
Very seriously. If anybody thinks OU is just looking past Michigan, he's probably going to be rolling out a true freshman quarterback in Bryce Underwood. No. They're taking that matchup very seriously and already doing their homework on everything that Michigan is going to bring to the table. Derek Moore, that's a good poll.
I believe he is still at Michigan.
Derek Moore was committed to Oklahoma for a long, long time. In the 2022 class, yes. And he decommitted right after Lincoln Riley turned tail and ran for Southern California. Ended up at Michigan. I believe at the time his former high school head coach was on staff at Michigan, so that one made a lot of sense. But that's a guy you probably would have liked to have. OU's doing well. I saw somebody on the text line say, I think LT Overton would start right now at Oklahoma. Who are we kidding here? Oklahoma has Dominic Williams and Jaden Jackson at the defensive tackle spots. Grayson Halton and David Stone coming off the bench in that rotation. They're just fine at defensive tackles.
Yeah.
LT Overton would be probably fifth in that rotation. Higher than 40.
He is at Alabama, though. That I had forgotten about.
He is at Alabama. It was kind of surprising when he left Texas A&M that he was able to land at a program of Alabama's caliber because he didn't do a lot while he was at A&M. But hey, former 5-star recruit, right? So he's got to be one bad dude.
It's just like a first-round pick in the NFL draft. You'll keep getting chances.
I Bleed Crimson says, if OU misses on Taj Overton, I may change my name to I Bleed Blue, Rain Kane. I guess you have the luxury of doing that as a 918 listener. You can always hop on the TU bandwagon. A 580 listener says, Jim Naggie has already done more than Curtis Lofton, although it's hard to compare the two because it seems as though Naggie's role as GM is a much larger one than Lofton's. Yeah, that's
exactly.
very much an apples to oranges comparison. Nagy is doing much more than Curtis Lofton was at that post. Gunny asks, speaking of tight ends, whatever happened to Devon Whopper Mitchell? Oh, my goodness.
Oh, Devon Mitchell.
He's at Louisville now. He signed at Louisville. Postal Sooner says, Joe John can get his flowers when he gets one tight end to play well and consistent. That hasn't happened yet. I will not stand for Braden Willis erasure. Braden Willis had a hell of a 2022 season. We are not going to take anything away from Braden Willis, folks. You want to say Joe John's tight ends haven't performed well in 23 and 24? That's just fine. Braden Willis was a dog in 2022. Zero Star Joe says, Joe John wants flowers? How about a black rose? If the tight end room is as bad again this year as his Latrell play calling was, everyone will get a black rose.
Good text.
Oh, you want to bring out the Doom texters. You just mentioned Joe John Finley's name, and they're all over it. Denver from Indiana says, with all these failures, how much falls back to coaches crapping the bed coaching? Not a shot, a question. I assume that's in reference to what I laid out going through the whole 2023 class and the 2022 class and also the 2021 class and the bad evals that occurred throughout the process, the guys that never amounted to much at Oklahoma. And I you look at the tape, everybody that has an offer from Oklahoma looks good on tape. They're one of the best players, if not the absolute best player on the high school gridiron. You never know how it's going to translate, though. You never know. You make your best guess, and that's all you can do. Because, shoot, man, you can run on down the list of blue-chip guys that Oklahoma has recruited over the course of the last half-decade, and there are so many of those guys that anybody would have watched on tape at the high school level and figured, oh, yeah, he's going to be a player at the University of Oklahoma. He's going to bring a ton of value to the table. And it just didn't happen. There might not be a more poignant example than Lewis Carter. Because for Lewis Carter, it was all between the ears, man. He was a missile.
Yeah.
in high school.
Good player.
An absolute missile. The tape was ridiculous. And I think he's going to have a lot of success at UCF. But from everything I was told, Grayson, he wasn't able to grasp the cognitive demands of playing linebacker at the University of Oklahoma. And that was enough to ensure he didn't see the field, save for special teams. You never know, folks. You make your best guess, you live or die with it. But you never know.
Kyle from Salisaw says, Flowers, how about a Bradford pear tree?
Okay, nope. Absolutely not, Kyle. I wouldn't wish that upon my worst enemy, let alone Joe John Finley. All right, folks, that's all we have for this Wednesday installment of Locked In. Tyler McComas and Teddy Lehman take over next on The Rush. Keep it here on The Ref.